Have you ever heard of a plant that does things that sound, well, biologically impossible? A plant that was once hailed as a key to ending world hunger, only to be, for all intents and purposes, systematically erased from history. Well, today we're telling the story of that plant. This is the story of Comfrey.
Okay, let's just start with the numbers, because they are wild. Back in the 1960s, British agricultural trials documented yields of 100 tons per acre. Now, what's truly staggering about that is that they got these results on soil so bad that pretty much every other crop they tried just failed. 100 tons.
And then there's this number, 48 hours. That's how fast it decomposes. You know, most green stuff you throw in a compost pile takes weeks or months to break down. Comfrey leaves, they basically melt into the soil in just 2 days, releasing all those nutrients almost instantly. It's like rocket fuel for your garden.
But this might be the most incredible number of all. 20 years. That's how long a single comfrey plant can be productive. Think about that. You plant it once, no replanting, no buying fertilizer every year, and once it's established, you don't even have to water it. It just keeps on giving for 2 decades.
So let's just recap here. We're talking about a plant that produces insane yields on terrible soil, turns into fertilizer in just 2 days, and keeps doing it for 20 years. It really does sound like a miracle, right? Which brings us to the big question, why have most of us never even heard of it? Why did it just disappear? To figure that out, we have to dig into a history that's been almost completely forgotten. And it centers on 2 incredible men who championed this plant. A Quaker who was haunted by famine, and a determined horticulturist who decided to finish the work he started. So, this story, it goes back almost 2,000 years. It actually starts in ancient Greece, where they called it knit bone. But the really important stuff happens much later. In 1845, there's an accidental discovery. In 1948, it's rediscovered, and then in 2001, it performs a sudden vanishing act.
So, meet Henry Doubleday. He was a Quaker, and he was deeply affected by the horrors of the Irish potato famine. He was desperate to find a way to prevent that kind of mass starvation from ever happening again. Then, by a complete fluke, he was sent a unique hybrid comfrey plant that just produced unbelievable yields. He spent the next 30 years of his life studying it, only for his family to burn every last one of his research notes after he died. His life's work just gone, up in smoke.
But decades later, a horticulturist named Lawrence Hills basically picked up the torch. He started the Henry Doubleday Research Association specifically to finish what that Quaker had started. He methodically tested 21 different kinds of comfrey to find the absolute best one, and he found it, Bocking 14. It was a powerhouse, high yield, pest-resistant, and, this is key, it was sterile, so it couldn't spread like a weed. And then he did something that just makes no sense in a commercial world. He refused to patent it. Instead, he gave cuttings away for free to anyone who wrote and asked.
So, what's the secret sauce here? What makes this Bocking 14 strain so powerful? Well, it's not magic, it's just brilliant biology. See, comfrey acts as a living, biological nutrient pump. Let's break down how that actually works.
Okay, so picture this. Comfrey grows this massive taproot that can drill more than 10 feet straight down into the subsoil, way deeper than your average garden plant can reach. Down there, it acts like a little mining operation, pulling up valuable minerals from deep in the earth. It then pumps those minerals up and concentrates them in its leaves. So when you come along and cut those leaves, you are literally harvesting fertilizer from a place no other plant can touch. And you can see just how powerful that pump really is. It's not even a fair fight. Fresh comfrey leaves have over 7% potassium. Now, compare that to farmyard manure, you know, the gold standard for organic gardeners, which is usually around 1.5%. Comfrey isn't just a fertilizer, it's a super fertilizer.
So this is the big idea, right? A biological nutrient pump. It's a natural system for unlocking fertility that is already in your soil, but it's just locked away where your vegetables can't get to it. Comfrey basically turns your own backyard into a free, bottomless mine for plant food. Now, a plant that makes its own free fertilizer is obviously a gardener's dream. But it's a total nightmare for an industry whose entire business model is based on selling you fertilizer. And this is where the story of Comfrey takes a much darker turn. $230 billion. That's the annual value of the global synthetic fertilizer industry. It's a massive business built on a model of dependency, where you, the farmer or the gardener, have to buy their product every single year.
And when you put the two models side by side, it's just crystal clear. The industrial model means you're buying something every year, it's totally dependent on fossil fuels, and it's controlled by a handful of giant companies. The Comfrey model is the exact opposite. It's free after one planting, it sustains itself, it can handle a drought, and it makes you completely independent. It's a fundamental threat to the way they do business.
Now look, to be fair, synthetic fertilizer, made from the Haber-Bosch process, absolutely saved the world from mass starvation about a century ago. It was a chemical miracle. But it came with a catch. It got the entire world's food system addicted to natural gas, and that created the massive, centralized industry we have today.
And all of this brings us to 2001, a really pivotal year. Just as the big fertilizer companies are consolidating and getting more powerful, and just as natural gas prices are starting to climb, Comfrey basically gets wiped off the map.
On July 6, 2001, the FDA issues a warning, and the science was totally solid. Comfrey plants contain these compounds called pyrrolizidine alkaloids. They're a natural defense mechanism for the plant, and yes, if you eat them in large quantities, they can cause liver damage. So it was a legitimate health concern about ingesting the plant.
But, and this is the part that everyone, and I mean everyone, missed, the FDA's warning was specifically about internal dietary supplements. We're talking about pills, teas, capsules. It had absolutely nothing to do with growing the plant in your garden or using it as fertilizer.
But that nuance was completely lost. The headlines just screamed, "toxic plant." The public heard liver damage and just assumed the plant itself was dangerous. And the effect was immediate. Garden centers stopped stocking it, nurseries wouldn't touch it. The fact that using it as fertilizer poses literally zero risk because soil microbes gobble up those alkaloids almost instantly, that part of the story never got told. And just like that, the plant vanished from the mainstream.
And here's where the timing gets, let's just say, interesting. All of this happened right at the moment when the industry that would benefit most from Comfrey's disappearance was gaining more power and facing higher costs. It was either a perfect storm or a perfect opportunity.
But here's the beautiful thing about Comfrey. It's resilient. Big industry might have forgotten it, and a poorly understood warning might have tried to erase it from garden centers, but they couldn't stop it, because the plant itself is pretty much unstoppable.
Bocking 14 hasn't changed. It's still a powerhouse, still cranking out 100 tons an acre. It's still sterile, so it stays exactly where you put it. It can survive brutal, -30-degree winters. It wasn't erased, it just went underground. It got passed from gardener to gardener, almost like contraband, the secret weapon for self-sufficiency.
And that's really what this whole story boils down to, right? It's a choice between two completely different ways of thinking. The industrial model sells you dependence in a bag, year after year. This plant, this simple piece of root, offers freedom. It offers fertility that costs you nothing, forever. So the only real question left is, which one will you choose to grow?